Hi, I'm Jonathan J and welcome to dealmakers.co.uk, the #1 place for business buying information. We've got a really interesting video lined up for you right now. I'm outside a podcast recording studio. I'm going to go inside and record 6 30-minute podcasts today. So you're going to see behind the scenes of what it takes to record a podcast. And if you haven't been on my free video training yet, there is a link on this screen. Click the link, it will take you straight through to the training, and that will give you a real insight into what it takes to buy a business. I hope that you enjoy the video. Hi Rob, good to see you.
Good to see
How are
you.
you?
Yeah,
take a seat. I've been looking forward to seeing you again. We've got lots to talk about.
I know, and they're always fun.
We just launched straight into it.
So Rob, how did it all start? what can you remember the very first business that you sold?
I can. And you do, don't you? It was up in Mansfield. It was a tool hire and tool supplier business. And I'd already spent 7 years working for someone else in an M&A brokerage business as general manager.
Okay.
But this one...
One that we would know?
Yes, they're still
Possibly.
trading.
Okay.
Not as much as when I was in charge of it.
Of course.
But of course. But I was working for someone else. I wasn't working for me. So that first guy, Tony, that gave me the order form to sell his business as Rob Goddard, not working representing the company.
So as your new
When
company.
I was driving back down the M1, I couldn't stop the smile on my face.
Sure.
It was wonderful.
It's great.
Because he
Yeah,
trusted
yeah.
me
Yeah.
with the sale of his treasured asset.
And the launch of your new business. And
Yeah.
It was validation that you could do this by yourself.
And I had shareholders in the background of my fledgling business.
Okay.
So the first thing I did was ring the main guy.
Yeah.
And say,
So good.
I told you.
Yeah.
I could do it.
And so you got the mandate to sell it.
Got the mandate to sell it, and I sold it.
And you sold it.
Within 8 months.
Which many brokers might be quite surprised that not only did you get the mandate, but you sold it. And I think that's actually been a theme for you, I believe, in that your conversion, if you like, from sales mandate to actually executing it and selling it for the client is very, very high, isn't it?
I've monitored it over the must be 15 years now of doing it myself. 3 out of 4 typically is what it revolves around. So selling 3 companies out of every 4 that come out, and I know and you know the industry average on the sell side is about 1 in 5.
Yeah.
So I've managed to reverse those odds.
And what do you put that down to?
Initially, it was me because I was a one-man band with some shareholders.
Yeah.
But actually, it was the team because as it started to get some traction, I couldn't do it all myself. Otherwise, I'd end up in a funny farm. You know, I'd make myself ill. So I started to build a team around me, initially with a couple of people that had worked for me before, because they were known quantities and there was no recruitment agency fee.
Sure.
They came across. But actually, for many, many years, it's been the team.
Yeah.
And I've gradually learned to make myself redundant from the business that I started and founded. And that's carried forward into other things that I've done. So a couple of other, yes, it's the team, which is a nice generic statement. A couple of things is not overvaluing businesses when you're a sell-side broker or M&A advisory firms, as we like to call ourselves, disassociate ourselves with brokerage. It's actually having an honest conversation with a seller about what their business is worth and actually what it isn't worth and why. And agreeing a number that's realistic that we're seeking to beat.
Yeah.
Most people I've ever met in 2 decades or so of being in the M&A industry, the majority don't take that approach. They tell the prospective client who wants to sell their business what they want to hear, overvalue the business. That client then has an inflated view, and they ain't never coming down from that number. No chance.
No, because they've already started to spend
My
it.
advisor told me.
Absolutely.
You know, your salesman said, and I've never taken that approach myself when I went out in business on my own. And that's one of the reasons why the conversion rate is so high and the team is good. Talented people that can do it.
Rob, it's been great as always. Thank you very much, and I look forward to having you back again in the future.
Brilliant. Look forward to it.
All right, take care. Thank you so much. I'll see you out. Hi, Cliff. Good to see you. Yeah. Thanks for coming over. Come and take a seat.
Thank you.
So, Cliff, you have spoken to 1,000 plus business owners who want to sell their business at some point. That's quite some going. I think probably you're the only person I've spoken to who's spoken to so many. So, what do you conclude from having so many conversations with owners?
That's a great question. I think the biggest takeaway for me, speaking with these owners, is that they are not prepared for the exit process.
Okay.
Either the company isn't prepared or they're not prepared themselves. And so it's a lack of preparation and lack of understanding as to what they need in order to be exit ready. Whether they want to sell, liquidate, or close the business down, whichever, it's just the lack of understanding.
Okay. And where do you think that lack of understanding comes from then? Because, these are savvy people. They've built a business over a number of years, sometimes over several decades. You'd think that they'd get the exit part, the sales part, sort of clear in their mind. So how do they have a lack of understanding?
I think for many owners, again, from my experience, is they love what they do. They're very good at what they do. But something when it comes to the financial element isn't quite their bag. And so the financials take a bit of a dip or isn't as tidy as what it should be. And dare I say, maybe there's also a bit on the accountancy side, where the accountant should be a bit more proactive in helping their client understand the numbers better.
Yeah.
And also really for them to understand exactly what they want to do up to the point of exit and then beyond exit. That's also a key thing, because if you're looking at, say, retiring at 65 and say you live to 85, that's 20 odd years. What are you going to do in those 20 years? What are your plans?
So are you saying then that the type of business exit someone has is partly defined by what they want to do afterwards?
Yeah, a bit of both. It's what they want to do afterwards. It's also how they wish to exit. If they want to sell, who do they want to sell to? Because the way they're going to grow the business will determine the type of buyer they're going to attract. Now, if they can't sell the business and so they can't liquidate the business, then they need to use the business as a cash cow to fund their financial plan. So it's all interlinked, but it's understanding the type of business that they're in, understanding the type of exit they want to achieve.
Okay, interesting. And I think many business owners would think, well, I just want to sell the business. And actually saying who I sell the business to they've never taken that extra step in the thought process. So who are the types of buyers of a small, and how are we defining small business in this conversation? What sort of size?
Well, I think my target market would be between companies valued at about 5 million down. For me, looking at it as being a small business owner myself in the past, I needed the help and expertise to get my business working properly and efficiently. But then when I come to exit or to sell it, to have that kind of help. So the ideal client is the SME between £100,000 to up to 5 million.
So sub 5 million in annual revenues. So what are the types of exit available to someone like that?
On the smaller side, typically it's you can't really sell because the owner is typically the business.
So this is what sort of revenue does that signify the owner is the business?
Typically up to at least say $500,000, give or take.
Yeah.
Where they are so involved in the business. Sometimes they do have good assets which they can liquidate, but in most cases it's basically done on goodwill or transferable value. So they could sell the client base, but again, that is still quite a small amount compared to what they actually need financially. So it's about looking at the business and how best they can use the business as a vehicle to help fund and drive their financial plans in terms of retirement.
So you're saying actually selling it may not be the answer?
May not be the answer, yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting. That is interesting. Cliff, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Sorry for interrupting your video, but I wanted to introduce you to a great lawyer in the UK who can get your deals done for you. He's worked for 50 of my mastermind clients in the last few months alone. His name is John Andrews, and I've got his details right here in my little black book of contacts. You can phone him on 0345 241 2494, or you can email him on johnandrews.deallawyer@jmw.co.uk. If you want someone who can get a deal done, he is your guy. So let's get back to the video. Yeah, you can expect a few visits to your website, I think. Cliff,
Thank you very much.
You've been great. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Speak soon.
Cheers.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. I think what's become clear from 2 of the interviews that I've done today is that the exit needs to be planned even before the acquisition. Now, I've been saying this for a time, but when you hear people whose job it is to help people exit their business say the same thing, it really drives it home that if you want the best financial result from your business buying activities, then start thinking about selling before you've even bought.
So, Daniel, before we started recording, we had a chat about M&A, mergers and acquisitions, buying businesses, consolidating them, exiting them. And I know that you've got quite a lot of experience in this area. So tell us some of the things that you've done in the world of mergers and acquisitions.
So, been building businesses for about 20 years and got to a point where organic growth was just too slow, really, to be honest. You get to a point where 20, 30, even 50% growth a year organically is hard work. It's heavy lifting. And I think a combination of global financial crisis, 2019, Brexit, pandemic, ended up, quite a turbulent market where people had the motivation to sell. They were fed up. They wanted to exit. There was uncertainty in the market, and during that period, we did a few acquisitions. I sold some companies in 2011, 2012, and moved out of clothing, manufacturing, retail into property, and then through property over the last 10 years or so, we've bought and sold about 25, 30 different companies, and they've been roll-ups. We've brokered deals for other people, and yeah, it's been interesting. It's been good. It's definitely not without its challenges. I think everyone thinks it's a quick fix.
Well, I mean,
it's not been our experience.
Buying the business is the easy part. It's what happens after you bought it.
That's the sexy part. That's the exciting part.
Yeah. Consolidation is so challenging. And, taking 2 groups of staff that may have been competitors before and putting them together into one office, well, my goodness, that's you can't solve that by putting everyone in the same uniform, that's for sure. What
would you say the biggest challenges you've experienced are in the M&A? Obviously, everyone thinks M&A is the step up, and it is a step up, but it's not without its challenges. To manage expectations, what would you say the biggest challenges you see in the whole of the M&A space are?
It's always people.
Yeah, I was literally thinking exactly the same.
Yeah. So biggest asset, biggest liability, and biggest challenge, dealing with sellers of businesses can be challenging. I mean that takes some people skills in its own right, and then taking staff that didn't ask for you as their boss, and yesterday it was the person they went to work for, and today it's you. And they've got you whether they like it or not. As we said earlier, I did 48 of these in very quick succession in 2.5 years, and you have huge challenges with the people. I guess you've encountered the same situations then.
Without a doubt, I think if it was all down to ones and zeros and binary and business frameworks and fundamentals and structures and strategies, it'd be a piece of cake. But you throw in people, like you say, whether it's the buyer or the seller, getting emotional, lots of fraud stuff going on. That we broke a bit. I broker more businesses than I do buy or sell now. And normally the biggest challenge I actually did a podcast episode on our podcast about it a little while ago called, I forget what the topic was. It was speak my language. And I basically said I speak 12 languages and they're all English. And it was basically trying to acknowledge the point of, to do those deals, or in my position now, more brokering them, you have to be able to understand all of the things that are going on, from the emotional side of things, the strategic point of things, people going from adult mode to parent mode to child mode to get the deal done. You're playing that that game, which has, you do need to be really well rounded to get it done. And then you get it across the line. Then without a doubt, it's integration, it's culture, it's values, and it's, you'd like to think companies are all very similar, but they're actually very, very different, even if the business is
so for example, we'd have one where the billing of the customers would be on the 1st of the month, and that's absolutely fine. That's great because your staff are paid on the 5th, so billing the customers on the 1st makes sense. And then you'd have another where customers would be allowed to pay any time they feel like it, with no pressure to pay by a certain date. So your cash flows get shot to pieces on that one. And then another one where people pay in arrears. So you've got all your costs ahead of your income. So trying to consolidate those different approaches and trying to get customers to behave in a way that's different to what they're used to. It's nigh on impossible, actually. You try telling several hundred people who are used to paying after the event, they need to pay in advance of services being delivered, and you've got yourself, you can have a rebellion on your hands.
Absolutely. Well, I actually had a conversation with a chap that I'm doing a roll-up with at the moment on private schools before this, and I said we're talking about politics and saying that everybody votes for change, but nobody wants it. Everyone speaks like they want change, and then when it comes in, actually, the majority of people don't like change, even if it's for the better.
Yeah, exactly. Even if it's
definitely
good
the challenge we had.
Yeah. Even if it's good change, and you can buy them a new microwave and a new kettle for the staff room. And you think, well, that's what they wanted. Now they've got it, and it's not as good as the old one. That's not what the old one was broken. But it's just this reluctance, isn't it, to do anything different to what people have typically done. Daniel Hill, thank you very much for your time. Very interesting to talk to you, and I look forward to catching up with you another time.
Thank you for having me, Jonathan. Appreciate it.
Brilliant stuff. That's really good. Good meeting you virtually anyway. And next time I'm in Sheffield, which actually I was very nearly in Sheffield on Thursday, but my train stopped at Chesterfield and didn't go any further. So I was on my way to Barnsley to pick something up. But next time I'm up in your area, I'll send you a message and see if you're around. I haven't seen you for, I can't remember. Pre-pandemic.
Yes,
How you doing?
so. Yeah, it was very
good to see you.
Yes,
Come in.
you.
Step into my my humble podcast studio. Yeah, sorry, we haven't got any coat. so humble, we don't have coat hooks. Take a seat. Like a tea, coffee? We're aiming for about 30 minutes.
So during the pandemic, many entrepreneurially minded people saw it as an opportunity to buy businesses, and to buy businesses from owners who no longer wanted them because they were fearful for the future. And by buying businesses, you're getting people. You have the responsibility for all those staff, which of course creates challenges, doesn't it? What were some of the challenges that you saw from people buying businesses during the pandemic?
So I think it was an incredibly difficult, challenging time anyway in the workplace for individuals, for managers, for owners, everybody. So that was the first challenge, was, well, where was all the staff? Where are they located? What are they doing?
People working from home.
Yeah.
And furloughed.
Furloughed, absolutely. And where's the information? Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, businesses still have lots of paperwork and documentation, things saved on their own PCs and things like that. So we had that challenge, because obviously when we're buying businesses, we need to be doing the due diligence and working out what's in place, terms and conditions, policies, procedures, things like that.
20 years ago, everyone was saying it's going to be a paperless office. 20 years ago, and it's the exact... Well, it's not. It's nowhere close, is it?
It's nowhere close. Nowhere close at all. And there's still that reluctance to move, from the paper to an IT system to manage data. So that's one challenge. And I also, it came to a point where I believe everybody thought that they could own a business as well, because they were seeing lots of businesses up for sale, closing down, going into administration, whatever it was. And, oh yeah, I can do that. And perhaps moving into it a little bit too quickly without the knowledge.
Interesting. Well, not what knowledge of of the business, or
just as a general.
Right,
I think.
right. Okay.
People want to be entrepreneurs, and perhaps moving into areas that they don't really understand.
And when it comes to staff, you need to get it right, don't you? Because there are lots of rules and regulations that favour the staff member.
Yeah, there definitely are. And employees know those rules and regulations as well. So it's not that you want to, to get around them by any way, shape or form.
You can't.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
It's the internet's fault. Right? Everyone knows everything. Yeah.
Everyone can Google.
Yes.
So, you need to be fully informed up front. You need to be aware of what you're moving into, what information you must have, and what processes and conversations you're meant to be having. You need to have that planned up front.
Because I guess, well, I can speak from experience by saying that if you don't do it properly, it's expensive.
It can be, yes.
I should explain. My favourite anecdote around this involves you, Kelly. So we had 75 people, I think, to make redundant at that business that I bought a few years back. And you dealt with 74 of the 75, pain-free, no problem. I did one, and that was the one that sued us.
Yes.
Yes.
There's a vehicle, if I remember rightly.
There was a vehicle involved, yes. So I think the conclusion I reached was to let the professionals do it rather than ever being involved myself in anything HR related.
But I think what you did was you thought you was having an adult conversation and a conversation where you was going to come to a mutual, agreement. But they don't generally work out that way.
No, I think he may have been fine at the time. Then he goes home, speaks to his partner, and his partner says, "Oh, they can't treat you like that. You've got rights. Let's get onto Google and find out what our rights are." And then they start a process against you. So always best to get the professionals to do it for you. Kelly, as always, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I look forward to hearing from you again in the future.
Thank you.
On another episode. Thank you.
Cheers.
Because I think you come across really well.
Really.
And it's so much easier. Just talking straight to cameras is hard. But that's very natural, very personal. I would feel if I heard that I could ask you for help and you're not going to make me feel silly that I don't know what I'm talking about. Was it raining when you came in?
No, it's been sunshine.
Oh, really? Is it? Yeah. It's always hard to know when you're in a windowless studio.
Well, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Good luck with it all.
Thank you very much. Have a good journey home, okay?
Will do.
Hope the district line isn't too bad.
Enjoy my day.
We'll do. Cheers, Kelly. Bye-bye. James, hello.
Hey, Jonathan.
Great to see you.
Brilliant.
Step into my office. Come and take a seat. How are you? It's just a conversation, and we'll just talk. You just keep on talking until you can see my body language change, and we can sort of shift subjects, or we can go into it a bit more depth or whatever. So, James, two things that I'd love to talk to you about today. The first is whether you should buy a business or whether you should start one. I know that you've got experience of doing both. And the second is scaling up your business acquisition. So instead of buying single site operations, in your case, buying multi-site operations. So where would you like to start?
It's a good question. I think if we address the topic of should you start a business or buy an existing one, my advice, and based on my experience now over 20 plus years of being in business and having started a business 20 plus years ago, which I did with my brother and we sold, and then I've actually gone back full circle. We acquired another business and then also set up a new business and then acquired another business. The acquisition of businesses is so much easier and simpler in the long run and a lot more easy to do once you've got it over the line. So I would always recommend to people to buy a business. Starting a business is so difficult. The one that we started was for a reason, for geographical purposes, and it will pay off, but it's probably a 10-year project before that starts paying back.
Yeah, that takes commitment, doesn't it?
Whereas the businesses that we bought, some were profitable straight away, some had cash in the bank that we could use, and so on and so forth. So in hindsight, it's a lot easier to buy a business than it is to start your own business.
It's interesting, isn't it, that if you go into a Waterstones, you see dozens and dozens of books on business startup, but you're very unlikely to find anything that's accessible to the public on buying a business.
You're right, actually. Yeah, I think the reason for that is because it seems to be easier. I think it's probably lower risk, but then the percentages of actually coming out the end with a profitable business or even a business of any sort. You know, after the first year alone, there's all these statistics around new co-businesses that just collapse well within the first year, if not 6 months.
Yeah.
And I can understand why, because it's extremely difficult to get things off the ground and to make them profitable in a very short space of time. And if that's your sole source of income, or if you are working 2 or 3 jobs while supporting that, it's extremely difficult to keep that going for the length of time it needs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you've got to figure out whether there's actually a market for what it is that you want to sell, and then you've got to figure out how to price the product and then how to market it. And if you make too many mistakes early on, the whole thing might not survive. That, like you say, the first 6 months, you could run out of money before you even got it off the ground. Where maybe you could run through some of the advantages of buying a business for us.
I mean, just simple things. We're talking about money there, but just having your own business bank account and the difficulties of trying to set up a new business bank account nowadays is extremely difficult with one of the main high street banks. There are other ones that we obviously know about that can help, but just simple things like that. And the day-to-day telephone and internet and, stationery and all the different things that you don't think about when you acquire a business, because it all comes ready.
Because it's all there. Yeah.
And when you, start a new business or premises or, business card, all the different things that you don't think about cost an absolute fortune.
Yes.
And take many times to get right.
Yes, yes.
And it just really detracts you from what your main focus is of actually running and starting the business. So going into an already made business that's been established for many years is extremely easy to do, because all of that's taken care of. Mm-hmm. And often you can go back to those main suppliers and other things after you've got your feet under the table, renegotiate some deals, get better pricing, better services, and it's just an easier way to do things.
Yeah, so I guess the immediate advantage of buying a profitable business, which is always the business anyone should buy unless they've got lots of experience and know how to manage a turnaround, is instant cash flow. You know pretty much what's going to be coming into the business over the next 30 days. And obviously after taxes, the profit is yours.
Yeah. And it's such a nice feeling to know that. It's not always the case, but if you study back and look over, 3 years or more's worth of accounts and have your accountant work alongside you just to confirm the numbers you're looking at are correct, then unless you do something drastic within that business, there's a real high probability of it staying profitable, if not become even more profitable.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So remind me how we first met or when we first met.
So I first met you on a one-day sort of mini mastermind, just talking about business acquisition through the Dealmakers Academy. But the real meeting, and the one that I have fond memories on, was the 31st of August, 2019.
Oh, wow.
When we met at Biggin Hill Airport and we flew
of course.
on a private jet over to Amsterdam, there and back in a day.
Obviously, it's the only way I travel.
Of course. So, and now the same for me. So I haven't been on another plane since.
Of course. Although tomorrow morning I'm on an easy jet, so not quite the same. Of course, I remember it well. I was speaking at an event in probably in Amsterdam, I think.
That's right.
So yes, that was a good day out. We went out as the sun was shining and came back at night time. So yeah, great day. So you went and bought the first business for your new group. Give us a bit of background to that acquisition, and tell us what, with the benefit of a year's hindsight, 2 years hindsight now.
Yes, 2.5 now. Yeah,
2.5 years hindsight. What you would have done differently, because people always want to know what people would have done differently, knowing what they know now.
That's a really good question. I think some of the things are around sort of the financial aspects of it, and borrowing money and the different interest rates you can pay on that, the deferred consideration, and how those can be structured differently as well. And then about the people that we sort of inherited, from the business. And there's some good and bad things about all of those things. So what I would do differently now around the sort of deferred consideration is always try to pay that back quarterly or yearly, which again, something learned from you just very recently, as opposed to a monthly deferred consideration.
Monthly's tough, yeah.
Because it's, as you said, the months come around very quickly.
Yes.
The joy and the benefit of having a deferred consideration within the acquisition deal is that if anything comes up, which it has done, that actually you can then either negotiate that, take it off the end of the deferred or off the beginning of the deferred consideration.
I think you're building a fantastic business, and I can see it growing to tremendous heights. And I think that your approach is absolutely spot on. So congratulations on what you've achieved, and let's get you back in the studio this time next year and find out what how many more of those goals that you've achieved. So James, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Jonathan.
No, I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Brilliant to see you
Thank
again.
you. And I'll be in touch in the next week or so. Well, what a day. They all followed the same theme. The theme is the people. If you get the people right, then the acquisition is a success. Get the people aspect wrong, and you might have a disaster on your hands. If you want some real life training on buying a business, somewhere on the screen right now there is a link. The link will take you through to my video training. It is free of charge. Go and watch that now. It'll give you a real insight on what it really takes to buy a business. And if you liked this video, then click the like, subscribe to the channel, tap the notifications bell, and I will see you on the next video.